some of the grimness of this story, I will be playing Solitaire. So if this combination of sounds and visuals help you relax or fall asleep, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like the video, leave a comment, and if you want to support me and my channel further, check out my Patreon that I will link in the description before you fall asleep. So now, if you've done all that, and if you want to fall asleep, I suggest that you lay back, relax, and give yourself away to the sounds. There are killers who stay in one place and killers who move. Volker Eckert, V-O-L-K-E-R-E-C-K-E-R-T, Volker Eckert was one of the second kind, a man who turned a cab into a rolling crime scene and used Europe's open roads as his hunting ground. For more than 3 decades, he carried private obsessions and secret crimes across borders. When he was finally stopped, investigators found hair, photographs, and notes that mapped a life of choking desire and violence. He confessed to 6 murders, but the shadow of his violence stretches way, way farther. This is the story of how a childhood FETISH became a 30-year trail of victims, and how a continent's cracks let him slip between them. As always, let's get to the beginning. Volker Eckert was born on July 1st, 1959 in Oelsnitz, Oelsnitz, in what was then East Germany. As a child, he developed a very weird interest in hair. It started with stroking dolls and wigs, a fixation that would later shape his choice of victims. By the early 70s, this weird fascination and fantasies of him became a consuming thing. According to interviews and police reconstructions, he imagined scenarios in which he would touch long hair and control the woman who had it. That is so disgustingly said. On 7th of May 74, when he was officially recorded as such a suicide. Nobody suspected the boy who walked away that day would be the same man implicated decades later. This first killing would remain a secret for more than 30 years. How awful. So there could have been family members of hers that died in that time, thinking that their poor, maybe granddaughter, or niece, nephew, whatever, or maybe even daughter, had committed suicide while in fact a 14-year-old boy was the reason she was gone. How terrible. After the first murder, Eckert's behavior did not stop. In the mid to late 1970s, he began attacking women on the streets of Plauen, Plauen. Police records and later psychiatric interviews show repeated assaults in which victims were throttled and left unconscious. These attacks included at least one arrest in 1977 when he was caught strangling a woman in public. Over the next decade, he continued to offend. And why was he still out? What in the world? This is so infuriating to think that a man could just be attacking women time after time in such violent, hideous manner and just be let out to go on and do it again. Because why wouldn't he? He's out of his mind. He has no moral, and he's a maniac on a rampage. Why did they between 2001 and late 2006 to Eckert. He admitted to 6 killings. Several more were linked by investigators after his arrest. Now we are going to read about his confirmed murders that he, Eckert, acknowledged. And they are all over the place, all over Europe. On June 25th, 2001, near Guérande, France. If that's anywhere close to how you pronounce it. Victim's name is Sandra Osifo, Osifo. She was reported as a young West African woman, described in some reports as Nigerian. She was found murdered beside a road near Bordeaux. She was identified later in reconstruction work carried out by investigators after he confessed. Next one, a few months later, October 9, 2001. It was in Spain, a place called Machanet de la Selva, Catalonia. A 24-year-old woman named Beatriz Diaz. She was reportedly a worker of some sort, and that is what was said in the news about her. She was killed on or near a highway stop. Spanish reportings from 2006 and 7 places several of the Spanish victims in Catalonia, where motorway parking areas were used as dumping sites. Next confirmed victim is a few years later. Last two were in 2001, and the next is in 2004, around September 5th. This one happened in Vezzato, Italy. Investigators later associated the killing of a Ghanaian woman with Eckert's movements. Local coverage and later police notes placed a 2004 killing of a sex worker in northern Italy within his route pattern. This attack is one of the cases investigators considered linked. Interesting. So he's just taking his drugs. He has to do all these long roads all over Europe, and wherever he gets the chance, and apparently it's not good areas where these drugs have to park, and there are women around, and he unfortunately attacked those women because he thought he wouldn't get caught, and he didn't for a long time. His next victim is from Spain again, Catalonia. This one happened around 1st of March 2005 in a place called Figueres. it's really nice to see that when someone dies, there are so many people who care about it, that work so hard to put a name to all these victims, to let their families know, and just to let them keep their name, give them justice. It is nice to know that, at least. The next one is in France again, around October 2nd, 2006. Near a place that I'm going to try to say Agnieszka, I think. Oh, it's her name. I thought it was the name of the area. But no, it's near Reims, France. Rhymes. And her name was Agnieszka Bos, B-O-S. And she's reported to be a Polish worker that was in that area. Another victim who's dead. Investigators later associated with Eckert through reconstruction of his routes and records. The next one is the same year, only a month later, October, and this was November 2nd. Again in Catalonia, Spain, near a place called Girona. A Bulgarian 20-year-old woman named Miglina Petrova was found murdered. Local Catalan investigators later used CCTV and vehicle traces that pointed to a large lorry seen near the scene. That footage would become crucial. Spanish reporting stated the discovery and the searches that followed. There are some notes to keep in mind in this list that we just read through. Different reporting outlets and police statements vary slightly in names and exact dates, language differences, and the transliteration of Slavic names, and the reporting of their nationality. They produce variation across sources. The Guardian, Spanish press, and German investigative summaries were all used in this timeline that we just read. It is not that long ago, but it seems that when the cases are European, getting details about a murder is not as easy and straightforward as the American outlets or law. You get everything with crimes in America. People and investigators, they all get the same thing at the end when the investigation is done. Most things. It's unfortunate that it is not like that everywhere across the world. And have you guys been following the aftermath of Brian Kohlberger's sentencing? Because I have been. And just every day more information comes out that, I mean, we know everything that we know already. There's nothing new that's been coming out. But there's been photos on his phone bedroom and place in general. Let me know if you guys want me to keep making videos about him and the Idaho 4 case. But again, it reminded me of that so many details, but not with the European cases. Now let's get to the part where we read about how he operated his methods, the trophies that he took, and the evidence against him. Across the cases, investigators recovered a consistent signature, or MO. Eckert typically targeted women working near highways or in vulnerable circumstances. He strangled and throttled his victims. Reports and interrogation summaries say he sometimes performed post-mortem acts and even photographed the victims and took trophies, notably hair clippings and items of clothing. Investigators later found tufts of hair, Polaroids, and personal effects in his truck and in his home. Those items, together with travel logs and fuel receipts, allowed police to reconstruct many of his movements. He is reported to have kept detailed notes, a diary of sorts, with dates and places, and to have photographed victims in various states. Those photos became crucial physical evidence when police searched his truck and his living quarters after identifying him. The final confirmed killing in Spain that happened in November 2006 produced a critical lead. Local CCTV captured a large lorry near where the body was found. Spanish investigators traced the license details and reported the footage to their German counterparts. And that tip, plus coordination with Catalan police, led German authorities to locate and arrest Eckert on November 17th of 2006 at his home in Wesseling near Cologne, Cologne. During the arrest and subsequent searches, officers recovered hair samples, photographs, and other objects that linked him to multiple unsolved murders. Eckert soon confessed to 6 murders that we just read about, including the 74 case where he killed his schoolmate, and he cooperated to an extent with investigators. Once in custody, Eckert admitted to the 6 killings, records assembled by the German Special Commission, called the OKD, and reporting by European newspapers show that investigators then began an exhaustive cross-border inquiry, so they finally realized that it's all over the place, and they got to it together, tracing routes, comparing DNA with cold cases, and checking missing persons files. The reconstruction suggested he could be implicated in many more cases. German authorities later said they could link him with at least a dozen additional suspicious deaths. Some prosecutors and later press reports estimated the number of possible victims might climb even higher. So the confirmed is 6, but who knows, it could be up to 20. By late 2007, police were publicly saying they could prove Eckert's involvement in 13 murders, and they were investigating links to as many as 19. Now, why do you think it took so many years? A central and unsettling reason Eckert's violence continued for so long was simply, and maybe not so simply, bureaucratic fragmentation. That was a hard word to say that I will not attempt again. Bureaucratic. I just did. Is that right? He killed in several countries: Germany, Spain, France, Italy, and is also suspected to be linked to some in Czech Republic, and many of his victims were migrants, foreign night workers, and people marginalized by poverty and informal economies. No one was looking for them. No one cared about what happened to this woman. It was a given, it seems. The Guardian's in-depth reporting on the case emphasized how Europe's patchwork of national police services and inconsistent record sharing, the missing links, allowed these killers to act across borders without the risk of getting detected. But he did at the end of the day. But can you guess? But can you imagine how many went unknown? Maybe not these days with more, eyes on the roads and things like that. Where was I? When they managed to get the DNA of Eckert and all these details to 30 countries, more than 30 countries, they just thought he's doing this everywhere. Investigators discovered old cases that might match his travel pattern, but the lack of centralized, consistent cross-border approach had been a major enabler. So only God knows his real number of victims. Police interviews and psychiatric notes compiled after the arrest paint a disturbing picture. Eckert had a long-standing FETISH focused on hair and control. He described early signs of it from his childhood with dolls and wigs. He told interviewers that the touch of hair had been the central point of his fantasies. Prison psychologists in the 1980s reportedly gave him very limited treatment, a few hours, and a court decision. Appeals and early release meant he did not receive sustained psychiatric care, and he somehow was placed in a work that he could safely travel around the world in all these questionable places and just work a quote-unquote normal job when he had committed all these heinous crimes. He only was in prison for 6 years and just sent back into the world to keep on being a horrible human. Many criminologists point to the intersection of untreated paraphilia, opportunity and mobility as a toxic mix in cases like this. Academic work on these types of things has cited Eckert as an example when a fixation became a vehicle for violence. While awaiting trial, Volker Eckert died by suicide in his custody on July 2nd, 2007. He was found hanged in his cell in Bayreuth, Germany. Bayreuth. He was then 48. Press coverage at the time noted that he had become distressed around his birthday, and that by taking his own life, the full public accounting of his crimes and the possibility of a full open trial were cut short. But at least he gave himself the death penalty, something that I'm sure he wouldn't have gotten if he was kept alive. Investigators were left to pursue cold leads to try to match his admissions to unsolved cases across Europe without his further cooperation since he was dead. Isn't that just interesting that even after these monsters get caught, even at that point when they know that this is the end, I am caught, even then they don't think to do one right thing in their life, which would be a full confession and telling them everything that you can remember from where the bodies are or whatever, which I'm sure it's not much. I don't think he has a good memory since he's been doing it a lot, but he keeps all these things so you think he remembers. Maybe he killed himself so that he wouldn't have to share it with others. How disgusting. So yeah, even after they're caught and see that this is the end, still they're not doing the right thing, just taking the shortcut. In the month after his death, police in Germany and in the affected summaries and regional police eventually estimated a suspected range, commonly cited as between 6 confirmed and 13 to 19 possible victims. But without a trial, many cases never reached a courtroom conclusion. Families and communities of victims tried to piece together identities and stories. In Catalonia, the grave of Maria Veselova was revisited, and local articles described neighbors and local citizens tending her memory. Spanish press also reported on the Bulgarian victim, Miglena Petrova, and on how authorities in Girona and Barcelona, is that Girona? I think it's Girona, I don't know, and Barcelona cooperated to reconstruct the last hours of some of these women's lives. Those human traces, flowers on graves, journalists tracking leads, police visiting families are part of the quieter aftermath of these types of crimes. Because Eckert died before he faced full sentencing and a cross-examination in court, a number of questions remain. The exact tally of victims, whether other unsolved killings across Europe belonged to him, whether earlier interventions might have prevented later deaths. I don't know how they would have figured that out, even if he was still alive. Investigators and journalists alike point to the case as an indictment of how vulnerable populations, migrant women, street-based workers can be overlooked in police priorities, and how mobility plus fragmented systems can shelter a serial offender. Truly, I'm sure you guys have heard about the recent case of the Ukrainian migrant who was brutally attacked on a train. That was the same sort of thing. How awful. But that is the end of tonight's case and the story of the horrifying life of Volker Eckert. What a horrible man, whom even after getting caught, he decided to stay as gross as ever. I hope that all of these people talked about and all the victims that we didn't even get to know their names because they were never confirmed to be his victims, are resting in peace, and that experience, and that it is full of positivity and nothing of the darkness that exists. All